Nathan, please get the round of applause ready for a versatile actress and singer who has captivated audiences on stage and screen for decades across New Zealand and Australia. From her first appearance in front of a camera as a toddler to commanding leading roles in beloved television dramas and musicals, she has carved a richly layered artistic path marked by depth, authenticity, and a love of storytelling. Her journey is one of artistic evolution, heartfelt performances, and unwavering dedication to her craft. You may know her from her on-screen roles in McLeod's Daughters, Upper Middle Bogan, and Nowhere Boys, and she's now taking on a new and much-needed role as an intimacy coordinator to help actors negotiate what could be a dangerous workplace safety terrain. Today, she is one of a handful of these intimacy coordinators in Australia. Please welcome to the show, Michala Banas! Hi, Michala.
I mean, who wrote that intro? I've never been more flattered in my whole life.
ChatGPT. I just punched your name in and went, write something for
we
me.
We got it straight off the credits from McLeod's Daughters. They roll it at the end of every episode.
Yeah, it's a combination of ChatGPT, Wikipedia.
That's why they're so long. It just goes on and on.
Yeah.
The credits at the end of McLeod's Daughters are longer than the episode, which is really weird. Michala, thank you so much for joining us. First things first, just for everybody, and including myself, what is an intimacy coordinator and what is your role on a set for a movie or a TV show? What do you do?
That is a great question. Thank you for asking. That is, the best way to describe it is like a fight or stunt coordinator, but for intimate content. And people think intimacy is always sex scenes and nudity, which it is, but it also includes things like childbirth, medical examinations, parent-child relationships, kids in a bath, a parent reading a story to a child in bed, cuddling, there's a big array. I think people just sort of lump intimacy into like the naughty stuff, which it totally is as well. Yeah. But it's lots and lots of different areas. So it's basically helping to choreograph all of that content safely with consent and everyone's personal boundaries in place, making sure that our cast, but also our crew are really comfortable and it's a safe set, basically.
What happened before intimacy coordinators? Was it just the actors being like, cool, I'm happy to go this far? Was the director making sure? How did it all work?
Free range? Or
it was free range. It was free range. And as someone who had a career in, as you beautifully said, as a young person and then a young woman in this industry, and now a maturing woman in this industry, up until a few years ago, there was no support whatsoever for this stuff. It really depended on the director. Some directors managed this kind of content really well. Others didn't do so well. And there's some all sorts of stories out there, some just awkward and some very, very traumatic experiences have been had. So, I kind of was like, I can't believe we didn't think of this earlier. Why is this not being implemented in our industry earlier? But we were kind of left to our own devices. I had to make out with an extra once because I was shooting Always Greener, was my first sort of big role. And the guy playing my boyfriend hadn't been cast because he wasn't in the pilot. But they had a shot of me kissing him in the car and then getting out of the car. Yeah. So they just grabbed a random guy, a background artist, lovely person, popped him in the car and said, you guys kiss and then you just jump out and we're going to film you because we won't see his face. Yeah. And this poor person, I was in early 20s, this poor guy looked at me and was like, what do I do? And I was like, just keep your tongue in your own mouth. Yeah. Just move our heads around a lot.
Wow.
But like you just kind of sometimes often were left to your own devices and it was not fun.
So it's almost like in early days you were really your own intimacy coordinator in that situation.
If you felt like you had the autonomy to do so and if you felt like you had the power to do so. And a lot of young performers don't feel like they have any power on a film set because there are, power dynamics in place that
especially
whether we
young
acknowledge
women.
them or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also young men, I think everyone sort of goes, we've got to look after women. Men also, like the more I work with and non-binary and transgender folks, the more I work with all different genders, everyone needs that support because a lot of men are never asked what they're okay with.
Yeah. So,
Michala, and often I'll be like, what are you okay with? Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that's okay.
What is the process? So say there's a movie that you're working on and there is like a like a pretty hardcore sex scene, like where the
Like Bridgerton.
Like
Bridgerton season
Bridgerton.
1.
How do you begin to tackle that from the outset?
Yeah.
Like, do you rehearse the sex scenes? Are there tricks of the trade? Like, what do you do?
Sex.
Yeah,
I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Like now your legs are open and now you put your head here.
Is it like a dance? Like you're practicing a dance?
Yeah, for the most part, yes. So the woman who intimacy coordinated Bridgerton trained me. I trained in the UK with her, with Ita O'Brien. She's extraordinary. I do a script assessment. So my first thing is reading the script, seeing what's in there. I assess the script. I meet with the director. I meet with the actors on their own individually so they can voice to me anything private that they may feel about the other actor or the director even, or the producers, like anything they're feeling uncomfortable or comfortable with or whatever. And then we all meet together, we talk it all through, and then in a perfect world, we rehearse it with plenty of time before we get to shooting, and we choreograph it. So some of it, and we have all sorts of things like modesty garments, cushions, barriers, so that nothing's touching that shouldn't be touching unnecessarily. If there is a lot of nudity involved, especially, there's ways you can mask things with camera shots, with angles. It's all about, knowing what you're trying to achieve, what's the story, and then choreographing it like a fight or a stunt. If you slap someone in the face on screen, you don't just go, you guys figure it out, you'll be right. You make sure the other person's not going to get injured, hurt. So it's physical comfort, psychological and emotional comfort as well. It's making sure, and people get chafed and, and cramps and all sorts,
When you say the barriers, so obviously these are professionals, but I imagine, when you're intimate or when you're getting to that point, especially those that have a penis, blood rushes to the area.
There's attraction. There's attraction.
I'll go get a massage sometimes, and I'm really relaxed. And you know what I mean? I'm not going to make
absolutely.
Out with. So how do you?
Erections are totally normal, and women get aroused, and non-binary folks. Everyone gets aroused, whatever your gender. It's some are more obvious than others. And erections are really normal. They don't happen as much as you think because it's such an awkward, weird, unique kind of situation with lots of people around, and the adrenaline and awkwardness of it, and the fact that
there's so
it's
many
not
people
a normal
watching in that set.
It's not a normal situation.
But
it does happen. And so what we put in place early is a timeout. And so the timeout is for should someone become aroused. It's also if someone's uncomfortable, gets a cramp, emotionally uncomfortable, needs just 5 minutes to go, I just need a cup of tea. We've been going at this for 2 hours. So we just call a timeout. No one needs to know why. It's nobody's business. But if you do get aroused, it's not appropriate, whatever your gender. And so we just go, let's call a timeout. Cool. We're just all taking 5. No one needs to know why. It's nobody's business.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So the rule is, or when I say rule, but something that you work with the actors on is, if there is arousal, you should call a timeout regardless. You don't want that when you're acting, even if you're a method actor or something like that. So that's a no-no?
It's not appropriate in the workplace. This is a workplace,
Wow.
and as much as it's an amazing, unique workplace, it's still a workplace. And if one person is aroused and the other person isn't, that can be uncomfortable for both parties.
Sure.
So for me, that's my opinion. I'm sure everyone has different processes, but in my opinion, and the training that I had, it's not appropriate to have an erection in the workplace.
Absolutely.
I don't, method or not, and I have respect for all different processes of act. As an actor, I really understand that everyone has different process, but it's not appropriate. Just like it's not appropriate to punch someone in the face in a fight scene.
Totally.
What happens
We're not doing anything for real. The only thing you do for real is kiss. And so people think, it's just a kiss. I'm like, that's actually the most intimate thing we do on screen, really, is kissing. And a lot of people, have a lot of... It's a really intimate thing. So people go, it's just a kiss, they'll be right, won't they? And I'm like, well, hang on. You don't know that this person's lived experience. You don't know their screen experience. Sometimes it's their first ever screen kiss. Sometimes it's their first ever kiss when I'm working with a young person. We have to be very make no assumptions is our rule.
Now, I know this one's going to be a bit tricky to navigate, but what do you make of the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case? There were rumours that she had been offered an intimacy coordinator for some scene in the movie, and she was, because Justin had texted her and been like, hey, you can meet with the intimacy coordinator, and she said no. So what happens in that situation when one person meets with the intimacy coordinator and one person goes, no, I don't need that?
You can't make anyone do anything until it becomes regulation, like a stunt or fight coordinator, which is what I hope happens with this role.
Yeah.
But
So
all I can do, No, and productions don't have to have an intimacy coordinator on at all. It's not mandatory. But I'm finding more and more do because they're seeing the worth in it. They save time and money once they get to set because it's all pre-rehearsed. But in that instance, and I've had that situation where one person wants to engage with me and someone else doesn't. All I can do is the best that I can do in that scenario and support the person that does want that support and communicate as best I can with the person who doesn't want that kind of support, even, or through the director, say, hey, listen, this is what this person needs. The other actor doesn't want to engage in this process, but can you please support this process for that actor? You just do the best you can. I used to beat myself up early on because I was one of the very first in the country to do this work, and I would get so upset when I couldn't make it perfect. Or early on, I had a situation very much like that with quite a well-known American actor who barely spoke to me, wouldn't speak to me really, wouldn't engage with me, and the actress wanted the support. So I did the best I could, but I'd come home very upset because I knew I could do better. But, you can only do what you can do with the support you've got around you. And there's not I don't have a lot of power on a set. A director and producer has more power than me. So all I can do is hopefully lean on them a little bit.
Can you jump in? Like if you sensed, I guess, and
can you make a call?
Like, hey, let's stop this.
I 100% would, even if I was scared to and didn't feel like I had the right or power to. But I actually ask for that quite early on. I say to producers and directors, I sometimes, because my job is to watch specifically that sort of stuff and read situations and read people, and if I can, and I look at minutiae, that they're looking at big picture. I'm often looking at the minutiae of things, and I say to them, do you give me the permission and the actor's permission to stop the action at any moment should we feel it needs it? Because sometimes I'll see something you might not have noticed, and
because you're trained to see that stuff.
And always they'll be like, oh, absolutely, and I never really have had to do that, because once I'm in there, there's a wonderful thing that happens for all the cast and the crew around them, is that there's this kind of awareness, a new sort of way of kind of navigating this stuff together, and I've never really had to jump in and do that.
Everyone feels safer.
We've all been on the same page.
So you're looking at like body language or like a look in someone's eye in those scenarios?
All of it.
What happens, Michala, if there's the film has started and you say you're in into your fifth month or whatever, and all of a sudden the actor does not want to participate in the sex scene or something like that? It was like maybe their off-screen relationship deteriorated or something like that. What are the options then?
Well, consent changes all the time, right? We know that. So that's all right. And we have those conversations early on. I always say that everyone's responsible in their own right for intimacy. It's not just on me. It's not just on the producer. Actors need to be really conscious and aware of what's in the script, what they're signing up for. And so when things like that change mid-shoot, as they sometimes do, we will go back and have more conversation and work out there's always a way to do things with new boundaries in place. So, I did a kissing scene where the two actors didn't want to kiss on the mouth. And people will go, oh, what? No way. I'm like, this is exciting to me.
So how did you navigate that when they both don't want to kiss?
That's fine. That's your boundaries. That's okay. If that's not where you're at, that's all right.
Oh, sorry. I mean, how does it work?
So
what, do you kiss cardboard or like how does it?
No.
You know what I mean?
So we kissed, we did cheek and neck kisses, hand kisses, which was actually far more sexy and more beautiful because we could see their faces as well. So it actually worked really well. I've done an entire sex scene with no simulated sex where we did a close-up of their hands on the bed. And that wasn't because the actors didn't want it. The director went, oh, we don't need to do any of that. All I want is a close-up of their hands on the sheets, her hand running down his back, and then their faces close together with no simulation. So they were in tracksuit pants, and no dry humping, none of that.
Because we spoke about it on the show the other day in Thor 2, where Chris Hemsworth was shooting with Natalie Portman, and I think Elsa Pataki, his wife, stood in for one of the makeout scenes.
That's so cool.
I know.
That's wild to me. That's wild. I mean, I've never had stand-ins. I've never worked in that way. That's an option, but not always an option, because your partner may or may not be a performer, or may not be comfortable doing that, or may not be the right physical match for that person. So that was just that's a pretty lucky kind of set of circumstances there. And also, having your real life partner on a film set when you're shooting scenes with someone else romantically could be quite difficult. I'd obviously worked for them, and that's awesome, but that's probably wouldn't be my first protocol.
Yeah, bring your wife to work day.
Right.
Hey.
Come and watch me pretend to almost make out with someone else, and then you jump in. It's like, oh, no.
You're almost identical.
Yeah, Chris didn't want her to. Elsa was like, taps her on the shoulder, get out of here, Portman, I'm in.
Off your pop, love. I'll show you how it's done.
Michala, thank you so much for being on the show. That was
so interesting,
really,
yeah.
really interesting. You speak so
thank
well
you.
about it, and we hope to God that it becomes
like a legal
legislated and regulated, that it must occur on all sets, because I think you do, I know you do really important and incredible work. So thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. And thanks for, often I have chats like this, and, I just really appreciate the genuine interest. A lot of people want to make fun of it and go, ooh, sexy. And totally, that's fine. But thanks for having a really, really interesting conversation about something that I think is really important. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michala. Enjoy the rest
Nice
of
to
your
see
day.
you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
Michala.
day.